So, hi there, hello. Welcome to the 18th episode of the Gutenberg Times live Q&A. My name is Birgit Polly-Haag, and I'm the host and the curator of Gutenberg Times. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It's so great to have you. In today's show, and the curator of Gutenberg, we will discuss a completely new feature for the block editor, the block directory. What it is, how we will use it, and how plugin developers can have their single blocks listed is what we will discuss tonight, and so much more. I'm honored to have with me Mel Choyce, member of the design team and product designer at Automattic. I have Alex Shiels, team lead on the Meta team and developer and code archeologist at Automattic. And CK Lee, also a member on the Meta team and JavaScript developer at Automattic. Hi. We do proper introduction in less than a minute. I have a few housekeeping notes and one announcement. Just want everybody to know that tomorrow we will record the 5th episode of the Gutenberg Changelog podcast, and we will cover the latest Gutenberg plugin release 6.4 that came out yesterday. We also discuss features in active development to those that are interested that can chime in on the discussion on GitHub or the Make blogs. We also answer listener questions we receive via Twitter or via email. If you're not subscribed yet, you can find us on any popular any popular podcast app. Just search for Gutenberg Changelog. Speaking of questions, if you're watching on the YouTube live stream, use the chat box next to the video player to post your questions and include from where you're watching. Here on Zoom, use the Q&A on the bottom of the screen or the chat bubble to share your thoughts and questions. And please be kind, even if you disagree. This is a family-friendly endeavor. Please say howdy via chat. So that's about that. What's the show about? Well, throughout the year 2018, especially after Gutenberg was introduced at the DrupalCon, the questions about a better way to discover blocks and organize them started. People in the Drupal community started a Gutenberg Cloud initiative, exploring the way to share blocks across different content management systems. It's an intriguing idea, but at WordCamp US, Mullenweg announced in his State of the World the 9 focus projects for 2019, and the block directory is one of them. The task was building a WordPress.org directory for discovering blocks and a way to seamlessly install them. It's now August 2019, and we are checking in with the team working on this task. So, well, I'm thrilled you all agreed to come to the show, and I get an hour with you talking about the block directory. So, but first, tell us a little bit about yourself personally. And I have the same questions for all three of you. So, who are you? Where do you live? And what do you do to unwind away from the computer? Mel, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Mel Choyce. I'm a designer at Automattic. And I live in Boston, Massachusetts, so streaming from my office. And I play drums and I play bass, and I'm in a band. So a lot of my time has been spent doing that recently when I'm not on my computer.
Well, it's creative. Awesome. Yeah, Alex?
Yeah, I'm Alex Shiels. I work at Automattic, have done for about 12 years now. I live in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm in my living room right now, which is where I usually work from. When I'm not working, I'm a keen amateur photographer. I like to get behind the camera, not in front of it usually.
Well, so this is a special place now. We have you in front of the camera, all right?
For once.
Just a follow-up for Alex. Automattic was founded in 2006.
Correct. Yes, I came on in 2007.
Yeah. So your employees 30 or something?
I think about 15, somewhere around there. Yeah, the first meetup was pretty small.
Yeah, yeah. All right, CK.
I'm from New Zealand, and Alex is my team lead, and I've been a JavaScript developer for quite a long time. I've joined Automattic probably 5 or 6 months ago, and what I do to unwind. I have a young family, so as you know, young family, if to unwind, you basically try to sleep as much as possible. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, but so how big is your family?
My wife and I have a 14-month-old daughter now, and a dog that we usually take the dog out for a walk, long walk on the weekends too.
Yeah, that's fabulous, fabulous. So the project itself, the block directory, spans multiple teams, obviously, design team, meta team, and also on the Gutenberg editor team. Mel, you have done a lot of work around the mockups and the design for the block directory, not only of this part, but also around the how it all fits in a WordPress admin kind of context. But could you please walk us through the various parts of what will make the block directory when it's finished? What's the vision and how will it work for content creators? If you want, you can share your screen now.
Yeah, let me get that set up. Okay, so you should be seeing Figma right now.
Yes.
So the block directory, the design portion has had 3 parts. So the first part, we wanted to explore what it would look like to install a block directly from the editor. So say you're searching for something and, you know, right now you don't have it installed, you get like a no blocks found message, which is pretty sad. And so the goal with this is that if there are no blocks found, we do a search of the directory and then we pull in results, like say like the top 3 results from there and then link off to other ones. Here we go. Yeah, this is the right screen. So you go to look for a block. And let's say I try to look for a slider block. I don't have a slider block installed on my site yet. So what it does is it searches the directory and finds the top slider blocks. And so you can preview them, check them out. And then when you drop them into your page or post, you can customize them. And so what we're doing is actually like installing the block on the back end while you're doing this. And so we have like various error states if it doesn't work out. And then you know once you've filled it out, you can go and publish your post, and we'll give you kind of like a preview of what you added when you were writing this page or post. So like in this case, we're saying you added 1 new block, just so you kind of can remember what you did. If you decide to you don't like this block, you want to get rid of it, we'll silently uninstall it for you. So you aren't really like, you don't have to worry about the installation process unless something goes wrong, like you lose your internet connection, and you don't have to worry about getting rid of it if you decide not to use this block. So especially if you want to like try all the top blocks that we show in those results, you can end up picking the one that's best for you and then not having to worry about going back and deleting the other ones later. So pretty much like as soon as you publish, that block is there. It's on your site.
All right, and the others are deinstalled if you tried them in between and they are not, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you like add them and you're like, no, this doesn't have the options I want. You get rid of it. Like you like remove the block from the post, and then when you like go and publish with your final selection, that one is installed and the other ones aren't.
Right, and I think what ties all this together there is if you go back to the screen where you search and you get the options that are come down in there, and those are then the idea is that those come from the block directory that's on the plugin on the WordPress directory, WordPress.org directory.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and that piece has. I think that's what the meta team right now is working on to make that the push in. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you wanted to browse more blocks, that would bring you out to the WP admin section.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's step 2, which is the actual directory in WP admin. And so far, that looks like this. So there's a post up on Make Design that has a link to this and some screenshots. So it would be a new section in WP admin that's about blocks. And so you might notice like the header is a little bit different. We're trying out a new pattern that we could potentially use across the entire admin. Just so everything's a little bit unified. If you like wander around WP admin, you know that there's a lot of different sections that like pretty much look totally different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of like an intro, some basic like documentation, and some FAQs, and then like a link out to get help. So the landing page is really focused on education. And then you go into like adding blocks. So like the plugin and theme directories, you could see some featured stuff, some popular, some stuff recommended to you based on the whatever algorithm you're using. And so these could just be like curated categories. I've just like pulled out some random stuff for now.
Yeah, but if I understood this correctly, those would not be plugins, that would be single blocks, right?
Yes, single blocks, correct. Yeah. So one of the big goals with the directory is that when you download a block, it's only one block at a time. Mm-hmm. So for instance, right now you might be like, oh, I really like the container block in this plugin, and I really like the testimonials block in this plugin. But right now to get either one of those blocks, you have to download usually like a suite of blocks. So you're like, oh wait, which container block did I like? Like, oh, like I don't need this, I don't need that. So the goal is really to like focus on one thing at a time. And so when you are downloading a block, you're just downloading that one block.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then we just have like a couple management screens.
Yeah.
So like seeing all the blocks that you've installed, managing all the blocks that you have on your site. So you can like hide certain blocks. Right now, this screen is you could do this in the editor itself in this like modal. And so it's like bringing that out into like a different kind of like WP admin managed screen.
Yeah, I think in the editor, you only can do this for this particular post or page, not over the whole site.
Oh, I thought it was site-wide.
No, when you click on that little icon up there, that's just the whole.
Ah, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this would be for your whole site.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I do have posts where I have 190 blocks in there, but it's all one post. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of blocks, and like so far, we haven't really addressed the scaling issues yet. And so like having this block directory and these management screens is another way to like kind of help with the fact that like blocks are gonna explode and scale up, and so at some point you need more than like a little modal.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. Well, thank you. That's a great demo. We all now have a visual of that, but there seems to be various paths that need to be kind of interconnected with other things.
Yeah.
So who's now working on the other part? So I know there's the block editor part where you have the inserter and the search, and then you have the Gutenberg installation preview as well. That's also in the block editor. And then you have the plugin directory on the meta site. And the connection would be a block JSON, a kind of a data format to give to push data back and forth between that. Yeah. So unless the plugin developers add the blocks to that directory, content creators won't find them, right? So what is it, Alex and ZK? You both have been working on the meta side of it. Alex, could you catch up how this all is supposed to work for the plugin developers?
Sure. Yes, I'm working on the meta, excuse me, the meta side of things, the plugin directory essentially, or the block directory. And the way we've built it to begin with is the block directory is just a section or a category within, it's a taxonomy within the plugin directory. So these blocks are WordPress plugins at the moment. So we've made a small section so far, which has about 8 block plugins in it. We've sort of reached out to a handful of developers there to get some early ones in that we can test with. And we're hoping to get some more soon. But yes, as you say, a block.json file is kind of key to all this. That's the JSON file that has metadata about the block that indicates, you know, what it's titled and things like that, but also additional metadata that we'll make use of in this install screen in Gutenberg. And we have an API set up. It's a rudimentary one, but it's searchable now. So you can search by block name, block title, that sort of thing, which is exactly what's going on when you start trying to insert a slider block and don't have one installed. So those pieces of it are built in dare I say, a slightly hacky way at the moment, but they're there. And we expect to ramp that up soon. The other piece of the puzzle on the meta side of things is, of course, plugin developers, working with them and encouraging them to build blocks, build single blocks, get used to this idea of building rather than sort of omnibus collections of blocks in a plugin, which is still a totally valid thing, and we're not going to stop people from doing that, but encouraging people to build small, simple pieces that can be installed independently. So we're putting together some guidelines and rules and things like that, some draft rules to sort of guide people through how we think that should work. And of course, we're going to consult with developers and the community to make sure we get that right. So yeah, that's from the meta side of things. That's the major work that's going on there at the moment. Oh, you're on mute.
I am. So you're my guest, so you should be talking. Have you actually thought, I know Mel said, so one thing at a time and not these big bloated, not bloated, but kind of block collections. That's right now the way people experience blocks and install them and say have a one uniform system that also comes from the theme developers. Yeah. How much more work would it be to actually kind of single out all those 40 blocks that are now in one collection?
That's a great question, and that's the kind of feedback that we really need to get from plugin developers. I mean, I would imagine in a lot of cases, especially with the simpler blocks, the kind of ones that we want to get into the directory to begin with, it's perhaps a tedious job to split them all out. But for the most part, in the code, in the way we want to encourage people to build things, I don't think we're asking a difficult architectural or coding problem. It's more the management and the splitting things up, and that's kind of a one-off job. I mean, because we've built this around the plugin directory, and these blocks are plugins. There is overhead there in building the thing and in packaging it up as a plugin. There are some great tools, command line tools for scaffolding type tools for building this, which I'm hoping that going forwards developers will make use of for new blocks. But it really is a great question. How much are we asking of developers of existing blocks and collections of blocks? To move those into this block directory. I mean, we're not going to stop people from continuing to make collections of blocks. And we're definitely going to be using some of the new search, like block search functionality within the block directory. We are going to extend that to all plugins. So if you want to go to the web plugin directory and search for a block named, slider or something, you'll be able to find them, whether they're single blocks or whether they're collections of blocks, or whether they're larger plugins that just happen to have a block contained within it. That's all totally valid, and we'll make sure that's all included. But from the installation within Gutenberg, we really do need to keep things simple. So it is a bit of an ask that we expect developers to kind of change and adapt to this. But I think the best we can do there is consult with people and try and keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually got some inspiration earlier today, talking to another designer, Sean Andrews, about how we could feature like collections we like on that like add new blocks page. And so it would be like, we really like co-blocks. Here's a bunch of the different co-blocks blocks for you to download. And just also like just ways of making it easier to like get new content and also get consistent content if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So now, CK, what have you been working on to kind of make this all come together? What are the goals there?
Yeah, I've been working primarily on the Gutenberg side of things, especially on the block editor, on the inserter part. So that's what Mel has shown, when you type in to search for a block, if a block does not exist or installed in the server, it will go away and fire a search to actually try to look for blocks that is not installed on the server, but it's actually available for you to download. So also on top of that, working on the installation of the block directly to the server, kind of like works seamlessly like magic on the background and just make it happen.
So you're the magician.
I wouldn't call it that way, but again, tying back to the single block it makes it easier for us to actually do things like this, right? When it's smaller, it's more manageable. I suppose from a JavaScript developer point of view, it's quite natural because you sort of like building components and single component that's reusable. Obviously, more if you're coming from a PHP background, it's a bit more different. So I guess it's sort of like a switching of a mindset to like, if we have smaller reusable block, it will help with the maintenance of things going down to the future. Yeah. And then we can actually look into further ideas like what Mel has suggested to actually sort of pull them together. So start with small, which is good, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Luke Harbers is watching us also on the Zoom. Hi, Luke. You're also in Australia, I think, and you're part of the Block Lab team who just released a whole set of blocks, not blocks, but block building tool. So do you have any questions, Luke, or do you want to, for our little group here on that? If not, I'm kind of wanted to, so there is other specifications online that people can look for, especially plugin developers, and how they would build it. What are the sites where they can kind of look through this?
There is a post on Make Meta, which is from a few months ago, that sort of outlines my early vision for what I think a single block should be. I think that was one of the links in the notes you had earlier. So that gives some idea as to where we're coming from there. I mean, one of the big controversial things in that post was the idea that these blocks should be more or less JavaScript only with no server-side rendering, which is, I think, is a sort of necessary technical limitation that we've had to stick to for the initial implementation of this, because getting this seamless installation to happen when you have a lot of server-side code is just it's much more complicated. So yeah, I am working on more a revised version of those guidelines, and more specific guidelines that they're not online yet, but I expect them to be up soon, and that will outline, I think, a bit more specifically and a bit more clearly what it is we think that these plugins need to look like, which essentially will be mainly JavaScript, minimal server-side code. Because I'm very much aware of the limitations of WordPress and the REST API, and the limitations of what you can do at the moment with purely client-side blocks. So we don't want to make it impossible for people to build things. But on the other hand, we really do need to minimize the amount of server-side code that's involved, and make use of that process of finding those limitations, use that as a way of improving the REST API. I mean, there shouldn't be these limitations in the first place. We're hoping that this will sort of guide us going forwards as to what where the REST API and where WordPress needs to provide better APIs and better tools to developers, so that all this server-side stuff that is necessary at the moment can maybe in the future become either already done for you by core, or at least doable in a purely client-side context. That's
interesting. Yeah. So a few months ago, Greg Solkowski, he had an RFC, like a request for comments on a blog registration for Gutenberg, which also touches on the block directory. But also want to kind of have the comments come in terms of server-side usage and creating blocks on the server side, or at least register blocks, not so much. Is that also something that plugin developers could do, that they register them server-side, put them all in the JSON file, and then be part of that block directory?
Right. Yes. I mean, when I say server side, it's not so much about the registration as the functioning of the block itself. But yes, you're absolutely right that RFC and the block.json file is kind of key to this, because without that, we do have code in the plugin directory and the block directory at the moment that can sometimes detect what blocks are registered by a plugin. But because it can be registered in PHP or in JavaScript, and because we're just examining the code to look for register block type function calls, and we don't have very sophisticated tools for finding that code, and there are many different ways of writing that code, it's not super reliable, and it's not the right way of doing things either, trying to parse the code to find out metadata about blocks. So that's why it's important that this block.json file exists and why the standard exists. So it serves a purpose, a functional purpose within Gutenberg as well, of providing just a standardized way of registering blocks. But we are going to make use of it in the plugin directory, probably with a few slightly different requirements. There is, some fields within the file that are optional within the RFC, but we're probably going to have to make them required for the block directory. So eventually I expect we'll get to a place where we require a block.json file with certain fields set in order for your plugin to make it into the block directory. At the moment, though, we're playing it a bit fast and loose and just trying to parse out and detect whatever we can and fill in the gaps based on guesswork.
Yeah, I think it's a smart approach to kind of go more the prototype route, kind of, what the first discoveries are, can we really hook it together and what's missing? And then now let's do it the proper way and kind of see how that would work, yeah. So Luke has two questions. So are the panelists, and I'm going to read the first one, are the panelists worried about pushbacks from the community around this? General feedback from WordCamp Spain was lots of agencies haven't yet adopted Gutenberg, and certainly the classic editor plugin is very popular. Is this too much too soon? Shouldn't we be more focused on better Gutenberg adoption before moving too far forward? Who wants to take that?
I can take that one if you like. Hi, Luke. We spoke at WordCamp Brisbane on a similar topic. So that's a very good question. I'm not worried about pushback because what we're trying to do here is get feedback and build what it is that people need. There's kind of a chicken and egg problem here. We need to build this for people to adopt it and to use it. And I hope that by building it the right way, people will adopt it. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right that there's some resistance to Gutenberg from people who like the classic editor or who are heavily invested in sites that rely on the classic editor. And that's totally reasonable. I understand that. I mean, I don't see that as being a problem. We're building something here for Gutenberg. Nobody has to use it. So, you know, I hope that by building it well enough, building something that users need and that developers like, that will hopefully get some more agencies, some more sites over the line in seeing how useful Gutenberg can be, and you know, come to that side of things, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good conversation with a friend who works at an agency actually like 2 days ago. And for him, the hardest problem his agency has had has been finding the time to train people to build with Gutenberg. And I think the more that we can do that at WordCamps and other conferences and kind of like help people along the way, the better we're going to have adoption. Yeah. And I mean, I'm kind of like, I always assume that there's going to be some pushback with anything I do in core. So it's also all about like making sure like we know, like, I mean, listening to what people are saying, because like people push back for a reason, but also be like being able to justify the decisions we're making and being able to like articulate those decisions. So
yeah, I think
sometimes it works better than other times. But.
Right. Yeah, Sika, do you want to add something to the discussion for now?
Yeah, like I just want to stress that it's actually a chicken and egg problem, right?
Yeah.
We really need to start working on the tools first, just to get feedback, and then we can actually continue to iterate forward.
Yeah.
But one thing that we are quite conscious about is actually the features that we're doing. We are always protecting back with settings to actually be able to enable and disable it. So that should actually help people to actually start off slowly ramping it up in the space of block directory or Gutenberg side of things. So hopefully that helps with everyone.
Right. Awesome. So we have another viewer asking a question, saying hi to Ellen Bauer. She's German, but she lives in New Zealand, as far as I think. That's right. So her question is, will a third-party single block be able to have nested blocks also coming from a third-party developer?
By nested, do you mean like a block collection?
Stuff's in it.
I can answer to that. The short answer is yes. So if it's by the nature of nested block, but they still work together as one single block in the implementation, yeah, totally, it will be available.
Yeah. So it could be a team block or something that is about a picture and a title and a paragraph, yes. Kind of thing. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
That's been handled. Yes.
Yeah, and then another question by Luke. Many of the agency I consult for have a strong preference to lock WordPress down so that their customers can break things or their site. Will it be possible to disable the ability to add custom blocks? And are we worried that people could really break custom themes with blocks from the block directory? I think there are more questions than one. So where are blocks stored? And by the way, and in the WP content blocks or in the database or these kinds of things. So
yeah, that actually it's the same answer to both of those questions, because these blocks are plugins. They're WordPress plugins. Although, of course, we're building a UI to install them from within Gutenberg, you would be able to go through WP admin and install them exactly as you would any other WordPress plugin. This is just a different interface, different UI to doing the same thing. So yes, you can lock that down simply by giving or not giving permission to install plugins. At the moment, although we did early on consider the idea of ways that, for example, an author user or someone with a role that doesn't allow them to install plugins could, I don't know, request a block be installed or something like that. For the time being, to keep it simple, we've basically just made it so you have to be an administrator or have to have rights to install a plugin in order to see any of this.
Makes total sense, yeah. Thank you. So Ellen Bauer has another question. So do you think there will be a confusion for users of single blocks and block collection blocks, since developers will probably tend to offer both their blocks in a collection as well as all of the same blocks in a single block, in single blocks? Kind of.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah. I mean, so the goal is definitely to push people towards doing more of the single blocks. And like one thing you should be able to do too is search by an author and then see all the blocks by those authors. So if you did want to download a couple different blocks that they're offering, you can do it that way. And so I think with there, it's going to be like a lot of good curation and like smart UI decisions. So that's especially one area where we're going to need a lot of feedback. Because like right now there are no limitations like in the really with plugins like what you can install. So it'd be cool to figure out a way like if you install a block suite, we still display it in the block directory under like one of those managed screens, but limit like what you can install from the directory itself to just single blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I think this is somewhere where having good metadata in block.json files will help. Because if there are duplicate blocks in single block plugins and also in collections, that way we'll be able to tell that these are the same blocks and display them appropriately, or not show duplicates or so on. But yeah, I think this is something we're going to need to work through with developers and with users to kind of refine how this works. Because at the moment, I mean, we're testing with like eight blocks in the block directory at the moment. I don't, and all of those are by different authors. So we don't have any that, any authors with multiple blocks. We don't have any blocks that exist in other plugins. There's stuff like this that will as we test and roll this out a little bit more, and get more eyes on it, I think we'll discover these things and start to work through those design issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really early, and I can imagine that you don't want to overload kind of how things work, with a lot of different things before you know that the foundation and the infrastructure is really working. Luke wrote in as well another. I thank you for your answers. Sorry if they came across as criticism. They didn't. I'm really excited about the block directory. Will block plugins show up in my list of plugins inside the WP admin as well as the block directory, or just in one?
Mel can speak a bit more to that, but I think the simple answer to that is yes. Yes, they're plugins. You'll see them there as well.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that if you install them from the block directory, we can figure out a way to not show those also in your plugins page. But if you're installing things like directly, like if you get something from GitHub and then install it onto like through the plugin screen, I don't know what we can really do there technically.
Mm-hmm. I saw at some of the screens, and I might just make it up because I couldn't click on things, but I see some tabs where it says plugins and blocks somewhere, or things. Yeah. So that might be a good way to just separate them there. So these are functional blocks, plugins, and then here are all the blocks that you use in your editor. But it gets a little bit complicated when you get into the widget blocks and then the navigation block. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of movement going to be in there.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there's still a fair bit that's uncertain about that aspect of it, how we display these in the back end and let people manage them. I mean, Mel's done a brilliant job of designing that. But that portion of it is not built at all. Mm-hmm. And it's something where that's kind of the next big thing for us, I think, is working through some of these issues and going not just from the design, but from the some of the more practical aspects of this, just work out, exactly how this should work in the outside of the editor and within WP admin.
Yeah, I can imagine that there are still a lot of discussions to have happening, which brings me to another question that is not yet, that's not in the Q&A here, but it is, so do you have a timeline? I know it's very hard when you do new things to kind of figure out, okay, how far can we push it or have a timeline together, but nobody will hold your feet to the fire. But yeah, so what are you aiming for in like a first beta or something like that?
Well, I guess the simple answer to that is 5.3. The aim is to get this in 5.3. Certainly the Gutenberg install side of it. We may need to push back the block management part to later releases. So, I mean, CK's got PRs sort of ready to go. There's still some more review and process around getting that into Gutenberg. But that part of it is largely built. So I think very soon this is going to be in a state where sort of early testers and people who like to be on the bleeding edge are going to be able to try this out quite easily very soon.
Yeah, I would especially love to see all the big block builders start splitting up into individual blocks to submit. And pretty much anyone who's already released a block in the directory, it'd be cool to get them in under this block category so they can start getting used from the installation process.
Well, that's awesome. I had not thought that it's going to be that fast, because beta is somewhere in September, right? The first beta, or the first beta release, and by that you probably should have things done. It's merely a month to go, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean the like big directory stuff, like the new section in WP admin is definitely going to be in the future. But CK's gotten all the installation stuff in a really good place. It feels like very, very testable now. Mm-hmm. And we've been showing it off at some WordCamps. So.
All right, awesome. Yeah. So how would for instance, Alan or Luke be able to be in the testing group of putting their blocks together and kind of see how that works?
We don't have a formal way of doing that yet, but certainly if you hop into the Meta channel in Slack and ping me, I can help guide you through getting your plugin into the block directory as it stands now. That's something we've done already. It already exists. We can just, as long as it's suitable, we can pop it right in there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. And is the Gutenberg part of your PR, CK, are they testable? Are they in a different branch, or are they just?
Yes. So I have, I think, about 4 PRs submitted right now. The good thing is, like I mentioned before, this feature is actually protected behind experimental settings. So once it emerges, someone can actually just download the Gutenberg plugin directly to their WordPress staging environment, whatever, and then enable the setting, and they can just start playing with it and just see how it looks like.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I know there's some admin pieces now in Gutenberg for the experimental settings where you also can test the widgets. So the block directory will be part of it.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So the widget is one of the experimental settings. So the block directory work will also be another setting part of it. So the early adopters can actually try it without much risk, I guess.
So it's not in the 6.4 yet, but it's going to be in 6.5 or 6.6 of Gutenberg.
Hopefully, we'll see how it goes with the review and everything. We're pushing for it, definitely.
Yeah. 6.6 is probably the one version that will go into 5.3 of WordPress when it's going to be released. Yeah. All right. I don't see anybody else having questions. I'm really happy that I now get a full 360 on that, because I couldn't place all the pieces in there. So I'm glad you took the time out and explained it to me and others. I think we are almost at the end of our show. Once it's in 5.3, and then it's iteration fast. But WordPress core is not updating as fast as Gutenberg. So it will be probably, so the new things, are you expecting them to be in point releases when you do bug fixing, or saying, oh, that didn't work, let's do it differently and fix it? What do you envision there?
I mean, I feel like the directory section in WP admin itself is going to have to wait for a major release.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, we'll just have the installation process drawing from blocks in using this custom taxonomy in the plugin directory.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, cool. Yeah. So I'm running out of questions, but I have a whole lot of ideas in there, so it kind of needs to settle down. And I'm definitely gonna connect with you on the Meta team, or now on the Slack. This has been so interesting and inspiring. I'm really, I can see it come together. Thank you so much. And at this point, I have only 2 more questions for you. So do you have any announcements you can get in before and you want people to keep in mind? And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? But yeah. So do you want to start now?
Sure. So getting in contact with me, my username is Mel Choyce on like everything, like on Slack, on Twitter. Posting comments on the make posts as we go along is also a really great way to chime in. I've been doing like semi-infrequent updates in the design chats every Wednesday. You can follow along also in the Figma file. So that's been linked to in a couple of the different posts, and you can watch me like trying things out during the day. Oh man, there's like a whole Scratchpad file that's just or like page that's just like stuff that I like try out, and then I'm like, nope, not this, or like whatever. So anyway, it's like a fun look into my design head. There was another question. Announcements. I don't know that I have any announcements. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So CK, do you have anything that you couldn't get out before because nobody asked you, but you want to tell us about it?
No, but I actually have a question for you, because before joining this, I saw on Gutenberg Times that you have the 280 blocks initiative.
I do have
the 280 blocks initiative that you have on Gutenberg Times. What's that like? And just interested to know more.
Well, it goes up and down depending on which version I'm using, but it's fairly fast. Yeah. I need to switch off a few tabs on my browser, but I get around places. What really helps me is when I have headlines and headings, to go up to the little information tool and just jump to that particular heading. Yeah.
Okay.
And then to edit things. I don't know if that was your questions, how I manage those, but and the plugins. So the plugin post is definitely the biggest one. And I have 100 plugins there. I need to weed it out. Some of them have been discontinued. I know, and I need to keep following, but there are plenty of new blocks out there. Yeah. So I probably need to split up that post into the different categories and a little bit more manageable, because it's not only me who has to wait till it all loads, but those who visit it need to wait too, because it gets into the plugin repository and grabs the embed part of it. And of course, the download is a little bit, with 100 one, it's a little cumbersome. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just interesting idea. I just thought just to mention that. Yeah. No announcement for me. To get in touch with me would be on Slack. My alias is CK3 Lee, Lee. So just ping me on Slack.
Well, thank you. And we will put all the links into the show notes once we get the transcript going. So Alex, any announcements or how to get in touch with you? And
Well, they'd be more or less the same thing. Like I said earlier, we're definitely interested in speaking with block developers or anyone who has a sort of a stake in that side of things. So if you have opinions, if you have a block plugin that you think belongs in this block directory, then reach out to me. I'm Tellyworth on Slack, or you can pop into the Meta channel is a good place for it. I usually at least mention any new developments in the block directory project in the fortnightly Meta chats, which we just had one a day or so back. So there'll be another one in a couple of weeks. You could join us in that as well.
All right. Well, I'm going to definitely go back and catch it in the back scroll. That's my favorite part to do, going to meetings on the back scroll. Yeah. All right. Well, big thank you to you panelists to come out this morning in Australia and in New Zealand, and this evening, on Friday evening for Mel. We are really touching the whole world here. So if you have questions, you can always send them to me via email at polly@gutenbergtimes.com. The recording will be available in a few minutes on the YouTube channel, and we publish a transcript maybe in about 2 weeks. It takes us to get through the content of it. As mentioned, well, thanks again to everybody, and well, let's get out of here. Good luck and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah, and close the meeting now. Bye. Thank you.